Right, this is going to be the newest episode of Hot Take Point Made, the show that all the kids are talking about the playground. Actually, that's not true. And also, I have no idea what kids talk about in playgrounds. I just want that on the record now for all of time. No, whatever. You get a joke. Because the thing is, if people don't know, that is actually the sad thing that they used to say in the 90s when they wanted to like create like a viral. They'd be like, all the kids would be saying it because people would just repeat like catchphrases from TV and stuff in that, which sort of shows you, even though now it's a pretty dark time in history, the 90s was its own type of hellscape already of consumerism and stuff like that. Like the idea that like that's the thing. Hey, what about this catchphrase from a show I heard? Like that's like some marketer's wet dream, isn't it? It's so gross. So anyway, what isn't gross though is the way we're exploiting the flaw in the human mind, where if you hear something that sounds outrageous, you immediately have an emotional response to it before you can rationally process what's said. And the way I know this is already working, Mauisnake, is because I said when I came up with the concept of this show, it is the greatest clickbait concept ever. But I meant for our content, as in like you can always make the headline a banger, can't you? Because the headline can be like simple what we top of it. No, it's better than that because people like Play GG and those other websites and like Russian websites. Yes. We are the fucking flame and they are the moth who cannot help be drawn towards us. They have to know by now the premise of the show is we're sexing up the takes. But I notice how many times, especially yours, by the way, because I've noticed, here's the sad thing. You know, Richard always tries to say like, oh, you're going to sort of take my niche and become the new Thorin. That's if you succeed, mate. At the moment, your problem is they're trying to make you the new pimp. And you know exactly what I mean. Because they're just trying to find like what the first take. And at the moment, the reason I see it like pimp is because the reason pimp would always be the one who got highlighted is people just wanted to get a take of his to hate on him. Like they just wanted to be like bloody pimps. And so I notice yours is always the one that gets the headlines now. You always get the one of like, gosh, Maui said this. And they even do the write-up. Yeah. Have you noticed? In the write-up, they don't immediately mention it's a hot take show. They always put like, you know, like top analyst Mauisnake came out with the car. They always frame it like you're just making so like press conference. I'd just like to announce that Simple will never be top 3 again in his career. Like they make it sound like that. So look, the good news is it means the show succeeded. We are succeeding.
It is funny that they actually purposely chop off what I say too, like because I'm always obviously explaining why I have the take that I have, and you know we're all giving reasoning for all of our hot takes, but then they always just make the headline something just so out of like just out of context. I forgot, oh man, like there's been a few at this point where people are just like barreling at me in the replies, in the Reddit thread, whatever, on Twitter even, because I just retweet the article or whatever it is, and then it's like, by the way, I didn't read the article, but I still hate you. It's like, God.
Like, welcome to the, tabloid journalism.
Exactly.
It's fucking insane.
Exactly.
But you're still not the new Duncan. You still hold. You're still mellow. You still hold back.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
Something. I can see it in your eyes that you hold back on something that you don't want to say. So you need to work on that if you want to be the new Duncan.
I mean, put it this way. I have always said about my career, I don't advise anyone does it the way I did it. I can give you different advice about how I might have done it better, but don't ever try and be me, because I barely get away with that. Like, I'll just tell people as a funny aside here if they've never heard this before. I know why that Fallen tweet blew up like probably the craziest, like bad take viral tweet of all time that everyone in the whole scene, including people not even from CSGO, came in and had to give their take on. It's because I actually had the maddest approach ever in the past, which I know this will sound insane, but I used to think if you actually have a really strong hot take that most people won't agree with, logically the best time to do it is when it seems like it's the most wrong, because that's essentially like you buy in low. So what I would do is, since he had just had like a pop-off game, right? But the day that I did that tweet, I thought, well, everyone's bigging him up now, so now's the moment to let him know I think he's the most overrated of all time. Like, but the problem with that is, even though it will really work, like, spoiler, if you actually end up being right, like, let's be real, like, it's not, and the performance in Imperial was never going to decide whether that was true or false. But like, I actually think if people hear my points, they'd actually go, yeah, it's pretty reasonable. But in that moment, like, it obviously people just overreact. So it's all good. That's what this show understands. And also, I hope, have we done enough of these shows, it will just make people understand, like, it's just fun, isn't it? Like, we all do like hot takes. It's not that we should avoid hot takes. It's just, let's be more reasonable in how we consider them. And don't hold a hot take against people forever, obviously. Like, just, it's a hot take in the same way as it's fleeting. Just let it go. Once it's gone, let it go. Even though in this episode, don't worry, I've got a hot take that's going to bring some prime spice with some crossover potentially. So anyway, Kassad, do you have one to start us off with for this episode?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with like trying to rattle Maui a little bit.
Oh, okay. Always up for that. Yeah, always up for that.
I'm going to say that Big won't qualify for the Paris Major.
Ooh, okay.
And I'm going to stick to this one. Yes, The new kid hyped. He played well on the last few matches, actually better than well. He played excellent. He got some crazy stats, but I don't think it's gonna be enough on the LAN environment when they face the teams in their group in the RMR. And I don't think that the teams that will be coming from the close qualifier, which is being played as we record this, I don't think he will be able to scale in the first couple of events at all against these top tier players. And ultimately, that's going to cost big qualifying for the Paris major. I don't know what's going to happen after that, but the point is that they're not going to qualify because they're not going to be good enough on that event.
Ooh, I think they're going to definitely qualify. Surely they're going to qualify. Because, I mean, you admitted yourself there that you watched Hyped, and I watched Hyped too for the Rio qualifier, and he was kind of powering up actually through that qualifier event. And I think he's good enough, actually. I don't think it's obvious that he's not going to be as good as Surson right away, but the rest of this team, like Favin is playing much better too. And I think that he's one of the reasons that I got on Big to begin with, because I think that Favin can be one of the better riflers out there. He's obviously not a top 20 player, but like he could probably be for Big like a 1.07 rated player every 3 months type of deal. Like I think that's good enough. And I think that when they have Hyped, I think that obviously people were like ready to discount Big pretty quickly there, but like after watching him, I think he's definitely good. I'm actually impressed because when I watched him in the Academy League a year ago, he was not this good. So what he's done over a year in terms of progression to me has actually gotten me reinvigorated for Big. I'm not gonna make some crazy claim about them being a top 5 team or anything like that, but qualifying for the major.
You mean like you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
He's taken that off this year. That was 2022, man. This is 2023 now.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't even think this is. I mean, to just counteract it, my bold predet is that this isn't even bold. I think they're just gonna make it to the major. That's simple as
Maui,
that.
like, listen. Is he talented? The new kid, the Hype, he's talented. Like, he showed that he can frag. Is he gonna be good enough for the first couple of events? Absolutely. Look at the group they have in the RMR.
It does look tough.
Heroic, Cloud9, Ents, Vitality, NIP, and Spirit. And that's without the teams from the close caller. If you add G2 there, which is a 50-50 at this point, right?
They're gonna, actually, no, they would be, I think they would be, oh, no, because it's A and B teams,
It's
so
A and B, it's 50-50,
right.
right? If you add G2 there, are they gonna be able to deal with all these teams, plus the other ones that qualify who are not gonna be, pushovers like Gamer Legion, teams like that, right? So it's gonna be tough. And that's why I'm saying I don't see them, qualifying at all.
Right, here's the thing.
Duncan, it's your turn.
It's all good. The thing is, I actually sort of agree with kassad on this because I'll just have to throw this out there. Remember, literally this exact same G2 lineup that is undefeated. We're not like they also couldn't qualify for the last major. So, spoiler: in the modern day, until they changed the format, a lot of people can fail to qualify for a major. I'll shade that in immediately, but then I'll also say the main reason. I'm actually surprised kassad didn't mention this himself. The main reason I think he's got a very compelling argument for that prediction, but not like a prediction of they couldn't be top X or they can't be better. The reason specifically they won't make the major is because I'll tell you the one thing if you go back and look at Sirisson's career on LAN is he smurfs in RMRs. In RMRs and the shit first stage, challenger stages, when he played all the tier 2, he murks them all, mate. Because the joke is, at that level, he is way more skilled than all those AWPers. And he was probably the best flick AWPer in the game, etc. He used to be, he would just post routine 1.2 or 1.25 rate, 1.3. There's a reason why he always, they kept trying him a million times. So my problem is, you have taken that out with the team. That was almost a surefire thing, that's where he would pop off. And then on the hyped guy, I'll just say this as an aside, because it's a rule I actually have from games like League of Legends, which is when you make your name in the game, right, you have to be really careful that there's not meme potential there. Because if you're going to call yourself hyped, you better actually be amazing now, or all the jokes write themselves. There's a player like this in League of Legends, right, where he's if in League of Legends, if Daughter in those games, you can have the person who plays one of the lanes, but they're not a carry player, so you call them a weak sider, because the idea is you never play to their side of the map, and their job basically is just survive. You're not going to give them any resources, right? There's a guy who plays that style, and his alias is irrelevant. It's brother, you're not even giving yourself a chance here. You know what I mean? If you're going to call yourself that, it almost has to be comical. It has to be you're so good. Simple's a great one. Obviously, he's probably the most exceptionally good player ever. Not just a simple. It's that works, but it doesn't work. If you're hyped. So if you called hyped already, the memes just wait for themselves. Overhyped. There's a million fucking angles. There's too many. It's too many. And so I do think that angle. And also, I'll throw in there as well. part of the reason I think RMRs are so treacherous nowadays is the joke is because the competition's so fucking broad in CS now. The pressure now became qualifying to the major. Before it used to be once you made the major. You know what I mean? Like no one really got super scared in RMRs back in the day. That's why famously when NIP failed all those qualifiers, everyone was like, "Holy shit, is this like a new world or something?" You can lose these things if you're top 10. Like, but I think in the modern day, like the problem is if I had to expect anywhere where this guy might slip up, it's when he goes to his first RMR. There's going to be a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and every fan's going to compare you with Syracuse as well, no matter what the team says. I'm sure they'll do a great job in interviews saying, we're not putting him in that position and we're working him in, etc. Doesn't matter. Fans are ruthless, mate. And I think the problem you have in Big as well, as a last point, is this. A lot of what made people not criticise Big is, I think it's one of the teams like NSA have done a pretty good job of making sure every fan knows they don't have money. Like they're not idiots. They're not choosing these are the best players. That's just who they can get. And then the other thing to say is, as a result, to me, the whole thing that made Big have its appeal was fucking Tabson and Syracuse. Like, at least those two pieces, the consideration was both could potentially be in like an international team, but were choosing to stay in this team. So if you lose Syracuse, it just loses part of the appeal. And then lastly, just the thing I noticed the other day when I was reading one of those HLTV interviews, because one thing I like, which Lurpus told me about years ago, but I didn't realise why he was right. The downside of video interviews is it takes forever to watch one, whereas the good thing about those ones HLTV does, they do them as text if you don't know, so you can just skim through them really quick. So I was skimming that one that Chiron did from Outsiders, and in it mentions that he was born in Germany, and that if he'd have had the choice, he would have joined a German team. Like, brother, like, if you don't know, guys, this guy was rumoured he would replace Rain in FaZe. And now he could join this team. He was maybe going to join another fucking national team. Why is Big not recruited this guy? I'm amazed that topic hasn't even come up, because to me, like, put it this way, in the interview, if you saw the headline, it was sort of like, it's a lot easier at tier 1 than I thought. Because if you haven't seen, that guy did just like step in and just immediately start fragging and like play well. It's like, it's ridiculous. So just as an aside, it's not even, unfortunately, the case that they maybe even have the best German talent. Like, that guy should be in the mix. They need a fucking good rifler.
There's JDC also on Maus. There's
arguments.
There's arguments, but I think, Chiron probably could have taken Keto's spot if we're being real about it. Like that,
It'd probably be better.
I do give that would be a great move for them. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, you want to do one, Maui?
Yeah. Mine is okay. All right. This is what I've got cooking. I think that with G2 already winning Katowice, I think that they will win a Grand Slam before FaZe does. I think they're gonna get it. I think they're gonna win their Grand Slam. God. I don't think FaZe is actually gonna win theirs.
My next one is gonna be good then. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
But I look at the events that FaZe has to win this one, and I just don't see it happening. I really just don't see it happening, because Kerrigan's talked about the fact that his team and he preps primarily for like 4 events a year. He preps for the Kato, he preps for the Cologne, and he preps for the majors. And if you spend all your energy to prep for the Paris major, which is like importantly not a part of the Grand Slam. If you win the Paris major, you won't win the Grand Slam. And for me, and the way I see Reign now, and the way I see FaZe now, they are a team that needs to direct themselves at certain tournaments in order to win them. Because it seems like the baseline level, like we were taught, like the floor of FaZe, we have seen it now, and that was with prepping for Katowice. So if they're gonna go all in on an event, it's probably going to just be the major, if we're being honest. And then that's going to actually take too much out of them for me to actually believe that they're going to have a great chance to win this upcoming Pro League, Rio, or Dallas.
You are absolutely out of your fucking mind, man. Like, first of all, they're not, like, it's not like LeBron James not playing the whole season, too many minutes, because he's saving himself for the playoffs or something. He's not 30, like he's 37. These kids like Brokey, Twists, Robs, they're like 22, 23. They're young. They can, their batteries last longer, right? So I don't think they need to direct themselves primarily to just focus on a major or Cologne or anything else. So that's one thing. I can argue, obviously, I can agree with you about the Reign and Kerrigan point. Yes, we spoke about this multiple times. Reign has an expiration date. Kerrigan as well at some point. They need to look down the future to get what they need to get. But the other thing, saying that G2 is actually going to reach the Grand Slam before FaZe, it's just ridiculous, dude. First of all, G2, yes, they have 9 shots to win 3. Is that possible? Probably, I don't know. But are they going to do it before FaZe? Absolutely not. The thing is, like, they're not playing Rio because they
really?
are.
They aren't playing it. They are not playing.
And
Just to prep on the major instead or something?
We don't know if they can actually play Dallas simply because Monesi is Russian. I don't know if he can enter the country or get a visa. So that's another one. The Pro League, they still have to win. It's not going to be super easy. So I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there is any chance of that. Actually, there is less than 1% that happens. One time I fucked up. I said 0% and I was wrong. So I'm going to stick to less than 1%. But the lesson learned. But
was that by any chance Huxley related, the 0% chance?
No, it was Furia. Furia against the IHC.
Okay.
I said 0 chance and IHC won. And it's like, what the fuck?
Fair enough. Okay.
It's like, whatever. But it's not Huxley. Yeah.
No.
The thing is, I wish it was. Would be more entertaining. But the thing is, like, I don't see a world with these circumstances that G2 can get to the Grand Slam before FaZe, simply because there's 3 more chances for FaZe, 3 more events, and G2 has to win 3 more from 9 shots, and they're not playing these 2 probably.
I'll clarify just a little bit before Thorin jumps on it. That it's just that I just don't think FaZe is going to get their Grand Slam. Like, I think G2 will, and I also think that FaZe won't.
The problem with that is it's 2 hot takes. Yeah, it's just 2 hot takes combined. So look, it makes it a really spicy hot take, but I actually think that's the problem, is you've taken 2 scenarios and you've merged like the probabilities, the less likely ones, and you've made it like a super one. So the problem is, let's just start on the FaZe side, right? The problem with that logic is, I don't really know. Like, it's like what he says about like load management. When you say like you focus on the major, yes, of course. Like if you're Carrigan, for example, even though the Grand Slam's money and all the rest of it, like ultimately you do want to get another major in your career before you retire. You don't know how many more chances you're going to get. Yeah, obviously you have to treat every major like it's just it. Like if people don't know, this is actually the reason why, if you're ever watching tennis, a lot of the times players are the dominant player. Actually, when they get older, they just focus on the Grand Slams. They stop giving that much of a fuck about the ATP 1000 or whatever like you do when you way up. Because their whole thing's like we're talking about here, like I won't focus as much on that one because I definitely want to, like, I'm only going to get a few cracks at this particular tournament. But at the same time, if you are the best, you still can win those ones on the side. So it's not like you didn't do your homework for that maths test because you were doing it for fucking French, and you go to the maths test like, I haven't got a chance of it. It's like, you are still, at the end of the day, everything that preps you for the tournament after is still helping you get good now. So the problem with that is this: as we say, the 3 chances they've got, it actually, in a fucked up way, Maui, makes it easier to win that the major isn't involved, because the 3 chances they have left are 3 of the most wide open of the ESL tournaments. It isn't Cato, it isn't a major, and it isn't Cologne. It's not the big pressure ones. Like Pro League, the joke is it's going to be the same dog shit where it's going to be no fans. Like, now not even being the best doesn't even matter. Then you got and also Pro League is just such a crazy new format. No one's ever tried that before. No one knows what the results will be. Then you look at the Rio and the Dallas. As he said, like for the Rio one and Dallas, I suspect, not only the qualifiers are mad, so some teams just won't be there, but some teams also probably just will choose to avoid those events because they're not the biggest events. So it's making it a bit easier. So basically, it's not that, put it this way, I would say it's a hot take to say anyone will win a Grand Slam, even when they're on 3 like FaZe, because winning massive tier 1 international lands is really hard. But that's also why. So the idea FaZe won't win it is a hot take, but it's not a terrible one. It could happen, certainly. My problem is this: if I put it on the G2 side, I think it becomes bonkers. I think this hot take just dissolves instantly. Here's why. Because one, by the same logic that you just put forwards, surely G2 and Nico's never fucking won a major ever. Surely his focus is on the major. He's not thinking about the Grand Slam. He's only got 1 notch. And by the way, as I said, having 3 is still like, remember, there's no like, oh, you were close. It's like you either win 4 and you get the money, or you get nothing. You don't get like 80% of the money for winning 3 or half win. You get nothing. You either win it or you don't. So the problem is they're on 1, bro. Like, remember, the brass one doesn't count. They're on 1. Winning 3 more is going to be really hard. Like, we're talking about, this is why Grand Slam, I actually think, is pretty well designed. I don't think it's possible to win one without being one of the greatest teams of all time. That's why I'm actually glad Liquid did win it, because they blew the majors, obviously. Because it was kind of a way to show, like, let's be real, like, who the fuck's ever going to do something like that? Just win 4 events in a row, a load of events international. It is insanely hard. So Grand Slam already is a pretty fraught one. And then the other thing I would say is this: they have only won 2 tournaments. Like, people are talking, I know it's because they had the win streak and they had the series streak. The series streak's still going if people don't know. And these are historic things. At the same time, 1, streaks all end. That's the reason why people don't just break records by like 3 times the amount. So 1, history says streaks will end, as that one did already, the map streak. And then 2, the problem with Counter-Strike is it's so fucking binary to win the event or not. Again, coming second doesn't help them in any of these discussions, right? They have to actually win the tournament. Well, the problem is, like, I think people understand by now, when you talk about top teams, you don't only count titles, you count things like how many times did they come top 4, did they make the playoffs, you know, like, that's what the reasonable expectation. So I just think, essentially, it's a super hot take, but I think it's too spicy. And then also, I've got a point later about G2 we'll get to. I just don't think, when you actually look at G2, they haven't revolutionized anything about Counter-Strike. They're not even vaguely like the most, like, beyond the fragging, there's nothing that makes them the best. So I also think they don't really have like a key factor that will put them ahead. Like, I did think when Na'Vi had like that super team in 2021 and they were just, like, there was reasons they did look like they had the style figured on land the best. There was fire. There was angles you could give. So I also think some of that stuff, people are just prisoners of the moment on that one. People are really thinking, I don't know why the joke is the whole scene's doing a hot take. Everyone's hot take goes like this. Oh, even though our pussy didn't believe in G2 at all, after seeing them win these 2 tournaments without losing to anyone, I just think they'll beat everyone forever. It's like, what? What? If anything, it's the opposite. It's so unlikely they'll ever do that again. Even the idea they're going to win another tournament without a loss is like, what? Most people don't do that. That's crazy. So I think fans are they're thinking this is a sure thing. I think, you'll get to it later, but I think this is far from a sure thing. So, are we ready? Shall I pull one out? Maybe I'll do this one to make it spicy, because I have a G2 related one. But the way I've phrased it, get ready, play.gg. This is your headline, homie. Richard Lewis is right about G2. But here's the thing, specifically the team G2. Because if people don't know, because he did that epic, how's my milk today, dickhead? How's the data worked out today? Because he did that, which everyone who's an analyst loves, because we all just wish we could get like a fucking, create our own catchphrase and zing people with it and get like a sick rant off. And it was basically just like, it was so cathartic if you're an analyst. It's like, you want to just do that to every fucking idiot on Twitter and Twitch chat. But here's the problem. Obviously, Richard's sort of done that thing where, even though like there couldn't almost be worse results to go along with his premise about G2 not actually being good, like they had 21 maps in a row, they did win the 2 big tournaments in a row, they did win every single series and no one really truly challenged them, right? That makes it look like, right, but he's going to have to say he's totally wrong, isn't he? He's going to have to say I was wrong and all of that. And obviously he hasn't done that. He's sort of doubled down and gone, no, because here's the logic. I will admit, of the teams, G2 is technically the best, but that's because all the other teams suck right now. Now, look, when he says that they're shit or they suck, that's a hot take. So that's immediately going to make people go, "Oh, okay, you'll just refuse it." So here's my problem. I will add this caveat. He's not right in the sense that I don't agree with his takes on Huxley and JKS. Like, for example, I don't think Huxley's some top IGL. Spoiler, even after this, I wouldn't even have him vaguely in my top 5 IGLs. I don't give a flying fuck. I think he's just a very average to slightly above average IGL. But the problem I have is this. I have a different philosophy. I don't believe you can get results like this and be bad. Like, at least something about either your temperament, maybe, if it's superstar players, or even some of the basics, how you run the game, something must be working. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really put an empty chair in there and a guy who can't frag and he's just like, I can't believe I'm getting away with this, we're just winning every series. No, because here's the problem, and you know this, Kassad. You can have a good IGL. I mean, this has happened with super team players and amazing guys. You can have coaches that have the right, but sometimes it just doesn't work. Like that angle, because people used to say the same thing about like a lot of the coaches that had the great players in the NBA. Like, I just had all those players. Many people had those players and didn't win, or were second best or third best. So the Huxley one I don't agree with. And then very briefly, I never really agreed with the JKS one. Look, this is obviously stupid if you think this is JKS. This isn't. Like, this is him, like, he's playing from support roles and had like a fucking MVP performance. That's a massive old performance. But one, if you had JKS as the starter team, he would be this type of fragging, but as the star. And then two, I never had him having to do that in G2, because I remember when I saw him, he's taking Jackson's role. This is just an upgrade with no downside, got stability, he has no, so that angle. But the area where I do agree with him is, even though it sounds like haterism, this is why it's a great hot take from him actually. If you actually just take the headline statement, G2 are the best, but it's because everyone else is bad. Like, I wouldn't say they're bad. I would say they're flawed. I think every other team has a key fatal flaw, which at the moment, and only because G2 was fragging out of control, is allowing them to win. And the problem is, I think personally, as soon as some of the players drop off, like, it's going to go down. Remember, the 2 players who were battling for MVP at Katowice were the 3rd and 4th best fucking players in the team. You're not going to have that in other tournaments. Like, even Monassi had a fucking chill time. No, it's not going to happen. So what I would say is this. If you look at every other team, Heroic doesn't have quite enough firepower. They've had that problem against lots of teams, and they just fade when they come to the finals. They could beat all these teams that they played in the quarterfinals. They won't in the finals. You've just seen that. Na'Vi obviously has that nightmare where they still haven't finished the lineup. The IGL situations are fucked up thing. FaZe just has the problem that they were only winning by 5% and now they lose by 5%. I don't even think that's that big a difference. Liquid just is one player away and they literally just take turns. Like, they pull names out of the hat, right? We're the 2 that are going to do good this game. You 3 do bad, or you 2 do bad, and Nitro just sits there. Like, every team has some factor. Outsiders still hasn't figured out, like, how to actually win on fucking more than 2.5 maps. You know, like, every team it goes down. Like, I've never seen it like this at the top. I know it sounds like haterism because people are just going to think you're just crafting it that way. Like, no, go and try and find any other time period in history it was like this. Because the problem is, basically, if someone's going to say it's the other way and G2 is leading, then tell me what they've innovated. Tell me what they're doing. Because here's the mad thing. The Kato final is actually, in my opinion, the nail in the coffin that GD2 is a genius lineup. It's just a lineup of really good players that's had some really good results. And here's why I say that. Because every map of the final, they were losing and then just fragged their way back into it. And they did it in all the least convincing ways. Like, you do a rush on T side into B site of banana as T's with P250s and you win against rifles. No, you don't do that. That's not Counter-Strike. That's not, no one drew that up. That's not a flying V, secret tactics, nothing. That's just you ran in and people like Nico just shot everyone on the head with a P250. Like, that, no, Huxley didn't plan that. No coach planned for that. They can't replicate that. That just happened. So my problem is, you only need one player to just go down a little bit in level. You only need one team to get slightly better and they'll just be a top 5 team, but they won't be the best. So I just sort of don't buy it. So come on then. That's a pretty bold one.
Wow. The thing is, like, I have so many things to say. I hear you speak, and it's like it's building up right here. I just wanna,
Let's do
it.
The thing is, like, there's so many things, and I agree on most of them. Yeah, because, like, did G2, first of all, are the teams flawed right now? Yes. Does that change the fact that G2 is the best team in the world right now? No. They have played the best Counter-Strike in the last 2-3 months. They deserve to be number 1, and they're number 1. Right? That doesn't change. But you need to examine how they got to the title here. Like, let's examine it. How many rounds ended up from a 2v4 into a victory? How many pistols? How many force buys? How many ridiculous rounds? Like you said, like, that has nothing to do with Huxley. That's like Hunter and JKS and Nico just getting absolutely, beast mode and just all together at the same time and just delivering frags all over the place, right? That's like you mentioned, like the coaches as well. It's like, it reminds me of this like glorified coaches that had like the best players and they're counted into these successes of the teams. Not about the CS, about the sports. Like, take example of Eric Spoelstra, where he had the fucking Miami Heat with Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade,
Yes.
LeBron James. Who else was there? The supporting crew. And like, for me, he's an average coach. He had Pat Riley behind him, in the great organization, but he did absolutely nothing. He's on the top of that franchise for God knows how many years, but they're shit. He had the best trio, the big three, the first big three. He won a couple of titles. He even lost the first title against Dallas, right?
Yeah.
And then he won, and then all of a sudden he's some sort of a miracle man. He's not.
Well, they won one
he had
with
the
Dwayne and Shaq, just to interject here.
But that's Pat Riley. That
was Pat Riley. That was Spoelstra wasn't there. He was an assistant at the time.
Oh, okay.
Pat Riley was there. He's an absolute, beast.
Got it.
So the thing is, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, if you examine the rounds they won, the matches they won, it was from a deficit. It was some ridiculous rounds. Just remember the ancient game against who it was. Like, they won like multiple 2v4s on A side, on post plans. Just absolutely nuts, right? Like you said, if those things, like, let's say 10% down on 2 players out of 5, if JKS is his like normal form,
which is going to happen, let's be real. He's not going to do like a 1.25 rating or something. No, come on, guys.
The thing is, like, if he goes down by 10%, if Huxley goes down by whatever percent, like, then Hunter, obviously, who is, who played out of his mind, he was the MVP. Like, if that goes a little bit down, and it will, like, it cannot go like all the way up. It has to go down at some point. And if it goes down in the crucial moments, they're going to lose to Heroics, to Na'Vi, who is going to have Simple on top of the form or lineup, sorted out. FaZe, who's going to be back in there for outsiders who are always going to strangle you. at some point with their stupid games play, and it's like going to be super difficult for them to replicate. So going and saying they're gonna, take the Grand Slam, they're gonna replicate this, it's very unlikely. Like, is Richard right about the G2 team? Yes. He was probably right about the Hooksy as well, because I agree with that one. Not about the JKS one, because JKS is pretty good. I know him, 5 years, whatever. But the thing is, can they replicate this? Absolutely no. So I agree. I agree with you that 10% down with those two players, they're just gonna end up in the quarters, And then we're gonna be seeing, or in the group stage, and we're gonna be seeing like, what about the day dickhead and those situations, But
Part of
yeah,
me actually wonders on that as well. Is that also part why he's doubling down? Because I wouldn't want to give up that catchphrase. Like, you want to sort of wait until bide your time and bring it back. So if it boomerangs back, it's going to be even better, isn't it? Like, if you can sort of rewind the same clip, but then it applies like next Pro League, it's going to be twice as spicy. Come on then, Maui. Where you on this one? It seems like you're a bit torn in the middle, maybe.
Well, I guess, I mean, I would, because there's a few angles obviously here.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that you unpacked in that whole take, and I think that with where Richard's take is the classic esports double down, and probably also like why it's flawed, is saying that the level of CS is really low right now, because it's definitely not. It's definitely not that low. Like, yes, there's teams with flaws, but all of FaZe's wins last year were against flawed teams too. Like, you look at that ENCE team that they beat, or the ENCE team that they beat at Pro League. Like, that team had barely any firepower. I don't even know how they're making grand finals. You look at the Navi team that was beating, that was during a war. There's literally a war going on when FaZe is winning all these championships, so Navi have that in the back of their minds. And then you think about like FaZe beating G2 at Kato last time also, that was also clearly a flawed lineup because they didn't end up winning anything with Aleksandar. So I think that like this is kind of a take that you could always say, like, every time there's a championship, it's almost like it's even if it is the number 1 versus number 2 team, the number 2 team is inherently flawed. That's why they're not number 1. Like, it's circular logic, which is why that's always going to be a bad take, by saying like the level is so low of anyone that's not a champion right now. It's like, well, no shit, that's why they aren't winning. Like, that's just in itself, like, you can't just say that because it doesn't mean anything in itself.
I think, like, yes, the theory is like fine, but if you look at the Counter-Strike that is being played right now, it's not very complex at this moment. It's not very high level. Yes, the firepower is there. People can shoot.
Heroic's
like
playing great CS. I think Heroic's playing like wonderful. So. I think they're playing a really good style right now.
Duncan mentioned like the innovations of the teams. Like, if you go back to Astralis here, you remember like, okay, they won everything, but they had like this thing with grenades, right? On Inferno, on Overpass, on these things, like new smokes. Like, even when they played Mirage, they were the ones with the combinations of smokes for top, middle, and short, which everybody took over. Like, they changed the defaults, they changed these things. What do we see changed in the last few months from any team, not just G2? We don't want to bash on them only, but like any other team, there was no innovations, even though we have new maps. It's like the defaults are pretty like, wide, and like it's like super basic right now. There is no advanced level of things like it was before when Astralis was on top of the food chain, right? And they were like beating everyone. Like you said, they had so many innovations with different things, especially utility. Right now we are not seeing anything. We're just seeing like super crazy good clutches and headshots, and everybody's like, going nuts about it. What happens when that stops? When headshots don't come? Where do you go? Who do you turn to?
Well,
right?
you would turn to Nico, because Nico didn't even perform that well in these grand finals. Like, that's why I think G2 can actually keep giving also, is because they won this tournament without Nico actually performing at the level we know he can perform at. It was Hunter, it was JKS. So when those guys dip 10%, just imagine Nico goes up 10% to his normal level, and then you're just back to the same kind of firepower level.
Yeah, cool. Imagine if I win the lottery 7 times in a row.
Hey,
I was happen. I would be a billionaire, but it doesn't happen.
I'm just saying, I was on that early HLTV article saying the way Hooksy's gonna call is gonna be good, and it did.
Maui,
it was.
There is only 5 frags per round. Like, there is only 5 frags per round, right? If Hunter is on top of the 4, Monasy and JKS, there is only 5 frags. Not everybody can have like 2.5 rating or whatever, right? It's just, if you think it rationally, you will come to the same conclusion. I don't think it can last for that long, simply because the teams will improve. I don't think. How long does it will take for Navi to get their shit together? Couple of months. I mean,
how long is this war gonna go on?
Before the major,
it's possible now.
It's not the war that's stopping them. It maybe slow them down, but it doesn't stop them, right? They can get a proper player and start like dedicating, that player to the team instead of just floating different players, right? So in the interview, the thing is, like, we have to mention this, like, when we talk about Navi, the interview that Simple gave was just unbelievable to me to hear it. Like
It's
he
so
said, like
good.
I
So
wanna
ridiculous.
ask the coach for the same questions, like the questions about the positioning for connector and stuff like that. He said like, yeah, well, sometimes I wonder the same things. Like you have to ask Blade, never mind, like whatever. What the fuck does that mean? Like, are you guys talking to each other, or like what is the
Blade
surely, like,
slipping.
if you're the
Blade
best player, and
slipping.
if I'm LeBron James of this fucking planet, and I have a coach and I have a question for him, like, hey, why are we playing whatever, like, zone, and we're not playing man coverage because it's fine for me to go one-on-one against a pleb somewhere who can be, like, I can dominate him 10 times out of 10. Why are we playing zone and I'm getting, bodied every single game and I end up not being in the playoffs? Surely that's a question that you ask. That's a fair question to ask your coach. Like, listen,
Yes.
I can give you more. Like, why are we doing this? I can give you more. But he said like he doesn't know what's going on. So that's a very boring sign.
By
I
the
don't know if
way,
they're gonna fix it.
I definitely agree with Kassad. I don't think like the war alone can be used to justify like them not being the best or them not being good enough to beat like FaZe or fucking G2 now or Heroic or whoever, right? Because look, it is a factor. I'll give like a percentage. Like they get some leeway, they get a bit of a pass, but they don't get a complete pass in this sense, which is, yes, as an indirect consequence of the war and its perception, it does seem like Na'Vi, if you just look at their actions, are on the train of we will not recruit a Russian player. The ones who are here can stay because they're really good and they were part of like what made our great team, but we're clearly not considering anyone who's Russian to be the next player. And the problem with that, Maui, is that is not something that actually is necessitated by the war. I think it's more perception that Na'Vi is the Ukrainian org and they're the big dog in the region, and it would just be like if you just look at how their players are getting attacked constantly over any slight seeming infraction or like wrong thing. Like I think the org just knows, like, as sad as this is, it's just not worth the PR no matter what it would do in the game. But the reason why I bring that up is because now is literally, this is a hot take, but it's essentially the main thing that probably holds them back is refusing to consider Russian talent. Like, we're in a golden era of Russian talent. Like, genuinely, I could list you like 10 to 15 names that aren't even the ones on Cloud9. They're not even the most famous ones. I'm not going to say Shiro and Axel, the ones that you all know. Like, if you're looking for what they want, which is like some firepower and like a rifle, like, that's exactly what they've got right now. They've got so many in the Russian sea, it's crazy. So that's even itself maybe a mini hot take. That's the main thing I think holds them back right now. I don't even know about the other shit because the whole thing with Blade and with the MPL guy was simple. Like, those are all problems where it's like, they don't have to exist. Like, we don't have to have a guy who's never played Tier 1 CS before. It doesn't have to be a guy Blade where you need time to work him in. Like, you're Na'Vi, bro. You are Real Madrid. You just signed the guy who's good now, put him in the lineup tomorrow, and win in 2 days from now. You know what I mean? And if you're simple, it's like, bro, like, do you actually think it helps? Like, if there's one thing I'll say about Blade, it's a good thing and a bad thing. He is like a little robot. He doesn't give a fuck what you say in a press interview, mate. Like, you're not going to use the press to manipulate him into do what he's going to do what he wants anyway. So I also just think that whole shit fest of like the NPL guy clearly isn't good enough yet. Blade's going to stick with that, which is probably going to limit the window of when Simple can win. And then obviously the whole war thing's means they can't recruit. I think the whole thing's just a fucking nightmare. So that's by the by.
It's a between the lines that Simple like try to like indirectly like take a shot and say like, listen, this is what I'm bothered
Yes.
with. Like and that's fine. If there is no communication, just create some sort of communication and deal with the problem and play the next tournament or the one after that. Sacrifice the next one. Sacrifice Pro League for fuck's sake, right? And then go into the next one ready. Like, doesn't fucking matter. If you lose the Pro League and you win Major, who's gonna remember that you lost Pro League? Nobody fucking cares. So you have a month and a half to fix this shit. So fix it, right? And also when it comes to this to war situation and everything, like what happens when the war ends? Like war ends on Monday and Tuesday, like okay, signing Russian players again. Like, is that how it's gonna work, or it needs to be like 6 months or a year?
Who knows,
how
right?
does that fucking work?
Yeah.
Like it's so stupid, and I think it can be resolved very easily. But it's a different kind of topic, right?
Oh, you got another hot take then, Kassad?
Yes. I was going to say, I don't know if I can swap it up, but I was going to mention FaZe and the Grand Slam, and I was going to say FaZe is going to win their Grand Slam in Brazil.
Okay.
So I can swap to the next one if you want.
No, we can do that if you want. Like I say, to me, it's never a lock that anyone wins one. So let's see what your take is. Why did they win in Brazil specifically?
The thing is, like, when after Katowice, I was like in an elevator where Kerrigan is like, we discussed it a little bit about, the form comes and goes, right? With everyone in every sport, like the form will be there and then it will drop off and you will suck for a while, then you come back and you win again, and it's how it goes sometimes, right? In every sport. So the thing is, like, I believe that they're going to use this time to get into a good position in Pro League. I don't know if they're going to win the Pro League. I didn't want to predict that or anything, but I think they're going to be fully ready, like fully like oiled machine, ready for the Brazil, and they're going to come to the major after that, and they're going to do well there. But like the point for Brazil is like many teams are not going to be there. Like we mentioned, like G2, probably Navi, I assume. Let me check if I can see who is actually going to be there.
Navi is there at the moment.
Navi is there for the moment. Yeah. So, yeah, Heroic is going to be there, but, you know, outsiders too. But the thing is, like, I do believe that some teams won't be there because of the major, and it's going to give them a great opportunity to win that Grand Slam right there. Right now in Pro League, everybody's going to be there. It's a LAN as well, but it's not like that. I think they're going to use this time to actually get everything ready before the big events of the season, like, you know, Brazil, Major, Dallas, Cologne. Actually, Cologne is one after the break, right? Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, go on.
So I think this is going to be the spot where they actually take the Grand Slam.
Okay. Here's the thing. The problem is, Maui, because they actually do have the list of teams for Rio, it's got a good case, because the problem is you look at that event, right? I'll go through the teams. So FaZe themselves are there, obviously. Then you have Fnatic, like, spoiler, Fnatic, if anything, is trending down. Like, no one really knew how they were ever winning in the first place. That's why we all bigged up people like Roy and fucking Mezzy, but, like, it looks like they're not that good. Mouse is hit or miss, and quite frankly, they just don't have the experience to win tournaments right now. Like, the point where you expect them to fade would be a semi-final. Navi's there, but if anything, the problem with Navi is, this is also why, if you want to do another hot team, it's probably just like, that's just Simple not know how to hard carry anymore, because apparently he doesn't. Like, it doesn't even matter if Simple plays well. Navi just doesn't win at the moment. NIP, I actually think they've got good pieces, but they haven't done well recently. Vitality's all over the bloody place, and they're going to have that whole situation with the Dupree thing. Fury is Fury and just doesn't win. Heroic, look, they're probably your main one that you're scared about, okay, and they've obviously played well against FaZe, but also FaZe matches up well against them. It's a great game if those two play. Outsiders, I mean, they've got the firepower to win it. Cloud9's just Cloud9. They have to prove that they can win tournaments. After that, you're on OG, mate, and then it's just people like Big MIBR, you know, like, this isn't actually that crazy a field. Like, when you think about it, it really is just about where FaZe comes in at. If FaZe comes in and they play a top game, don't they just win this tournament?
Well, I think Heroic are the favorites to win that tournament.
Heroic's won one tournament ever in their entire fucking lives that was a real tournament. Ever.
Yeah, and FaZe haven't won a tournament for like 10 months. So, like...
So what's the relevance?
When did Heroic win that one?
Heroic are in much better form than FaZe right now. Like,
you know the tournament that Heroic won? It was by like one round over FaZe.
Yes, I'm aware. But also, like, Rain is...
So which is it? Because we can do this two ways. Either Heroic's good because they won that, and FaZe is almost as good for almost winning, or FaZe is shit and can't win, in which case, why is Heroic's win really that good?
Well, also, Heroic were in the grand finals of Kato, and FaZe didn't even make playoffs. So they lost to a Liquid team that you would not also... If Liquid were in this thing, I mean, that's one thing that is working for FaZe. Also, there's no Liquid. There's obviously no G2 in this one.
Yeah. And those are two of the teams that can beat them, for sure.
If there's a tournament that FaZe can win, there's a good reason that it could be Rio. But like last time, they came to Rio and they just complained about like, just landed. These teams that warmed up already are better. It's just like... I don't know. I'm ready to hear an excuse from FaZe this time. Right. That's what we got last time.
Learned. They're gonna fly 3 days earlier. There is no like challenger stage. So
everybody should have learned that lesson though. I think it's so. You would think so. I mean, if FaZe wanted to get it done, this is one place they could do it. But if we want to move on, I have a hot take that just transitions perfectly off this. Is that what FaZe should do if they want to win their Grand Slam? Is they should save strats for Dallas. They should actually try to win Dallas more than Rio, because I think that Dallas is where, because we all see that post-major hangover, it hits everybody so hard. But if you're FaZe, you don't really care about the major that much, which like you shouldn't if you want the Grand Slam is what I'm saying. Obviously
you have to prioritize one, you think, right? Okay.
Yeah, if you want to prioritize one, and I think that they should prioritize the Grand Slam, you should just go for the Grand Slam, because the major, everybody's going to ramp up for that. It's going to be so difficult to win that one. But I think Dallas is like one of those, I mean, Kassad, you would call it like probably Banana Cup status.
Is that even worse lineup? I'll have a look what it is. Let me have a look.
You mean Dallas is the Banana Cup?
Well, like,
we just don't know the teams yet for that one. That's the thing. But I imagine it'll be like visa problems again, like he suggested. So it probably will be an even worse lap than Rio, right?
You think it could happen at Rio. I think it could definitely happen at Dallas, but they have to like target Dallas. They have to, whereas Rio to me is a little bit harder to target because it's right between Pro League and the major, and everybody kind of wants to, like, after the slog of Pro League, if you're there till the very end of Pro League and like, Rio is like
before major.
Yeah, it is a couple weeks after Pro League. So you could arrive early, you could beat the jet lag, but you could also do that. You could also do that with Dallas if you don't really try that hard at the major. I'm not saying throw games, but obviously just bring what you have in practice that you've learned throughout Pro League, through Rio.
It's certainly a hot take. You've got to give him. It is a hot take, Kassad. Like the hot take of don't try that hard at the major, literally saving strats, and then I like it. Keep going.
To utter a word that nobody has ever said in esports: save strats for Dallas. Save strats for Dallas.
Well, the best part is, the joke is you're supposed to say save strats for the major. Yours is save strats, but don't use them at the major. Then use them at a worse tournament. I like it.
Yeah, use them after. Use them after the major.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because think about that. By the way, if you actually did also do that, they're not going to do that. But if they did, that would also be the most genius way when you get eliminated from the major to say, well, what happened? You go, well, we're saving strats for IEM Dallas, aren't we? Like, that would be one of the greatest quotables of all time in an interview. Because it sounds so stupid, wouldn't it? I know. Come on then, Kassad. I can tell you're ready for this one, mate.
The thing is, like, I can't really buy into these things. Like, we are more prepared for one event than for another. Like, I was an ex-tier 1 competitor, right? Like, I used to visit all these events one after another for years, right? And I can tell you, in my own experience, we never, ever had something like that. Like, listen, we're going to prepare super hard for this event. We're going to focus 100% on this one. And then the next one comes, we're going to practice less. Or we're going to be focused less. Like, never happened. And I don't think it ever happens in any team. And if it does, that team should not be in that org. They should go and, do something else. Because, like, it's just not the way to go. It's just not natural. Like, to not prepare. Like, you want to win, right?
Yes, yeah, of course.
You want to fucking win. And, there is nothing else to do. You are stuck somewhere, like, after the event, as we did, either in Detroit or somewhere in fucking Poland or somewhere, right? And then we have to practice, and all we have in our minds is the tournament that's in front of us. Sometimes that's a punishment too, because like you don't get to fix all the big problems because you're fixing all the small ones and preparing for the next event. That can be a problem too. But overall, I can't really buy into these things. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna focus on, like, my 100% attention is gonna be on this event, and who cares what happens on the other one, even that's the major. But it's a funny hot take. It is. It really is. But I can't buy into that one.
Yeah, basically the problem is, like, obviously people will know that was one of my old school pet peeves, that the idea people were saving strats for the major and that's why they lost now. Like, the problem with that is I don't believe that's ever actually been a thing. Like, as far as I know, the only time anyone ever really did save something was the all-off boost. That's the only one I'm aware of where they knew it for months. They really did not use it. Now, here's the thing. Even then, I did hear from players like, I think Exist, that people had done a variant of that in scrims before. It wasn't as good as that one. And even then, by the way, that's why, if you know that context, the LDLC themselves in the match had like a 75% as good boost. And there was a variant of the boost that had sort of been seen. And I think people had even seen it, not even on the one that was taken out, but on other YouTube videos. I think people had shown that you can do a weird boost, right? The reason why I bring that up is because even that was an insane gamble. If someone in the meantime, while you're sitting on that, figures it out and does it, like, God forbid, by the way, in a tier 3 online game in a cop, everyone's going to see it on Reddit and then everyone would have known and you actually would have got nothing from that. So I already think that's like a weird territory, because the problem is, like, it'd be okay if you said prepare differently. I'll be with you on that. But the idea you actually like had like some strats and you save them, I don't think that's even the way strats are like made, because you make them through practice and testing them out. And actually you need to try them against a lesser opponent to know, like, does that even fundamentally work? You can't sort of just really wait like a movie and be like, right, it's a semi-final, it's the opponent I can't beat. If
a strat works against one team, it's not going to work against another.
Yeah, exactly.
So your best strat might not work against a certain type of teams. So it doesn't really matter if you hide it or not.
Yes.
Like, it's just a...
So to me, the angle... I do think it is the case, though, that you have to naturally, as a competitor and as a coach in IGL, you do have to prioritise certain tournaments, but that's just the nature of, like, if you have a tournament where it's like a tournament 2 weeks later is the major, then a week later is a different one, you can't prep for them all equally, because logically, like, one of them... like, so the logical thing to me goes like this. It's all about your prep. Like, it's either which one do we do the boot camp for example, or which one do we put the the heavy, like for example, and even then there's different boot camps. Do we do a boot camp of our own, like Big Mike in Germany, or do we go to one where we hear a bunch of teams are going to Serbia to a boot camp cafe and then mix with a bunch of teams? There's one angle. And then the other one is this. I would just say it's how you address what happens in practice. If I'm practicing for a tournament that begins in 2 days, and then there's only 3 days, including a travel day, to the tournament after that, then if anything that goes wrong, I'm just going to do like a Band-Aid fix. I'm just going to fix it slightly now so that in this next match I can still use what I'm doing. If I had like 2 weeks, I might go, right, let's actually like unpack this. Maybe that approach is wrong. Let's fundamentally change your role on this. I'm not going to do that if there's 3 days or I've only got 1.5 days meaningful prep. I do think that stuff's possible. So in that vein, the problem is I'd have to believe the conceit, like we're saying here, that they would ever do some triage of like, right, instead of, because let's be real, the real pro player, I'm sorry, they're all idiots. They do just think, why not? I just win every one of the tournaments. Why don't I win Pro League and Rio and the Major, and then let's win Dallas as well? Like a pro would think that. They just think like next frag in front of them, next round in front of them. But let's say they did think, well, I want to win the Grand Slam more than... Yeah, in theory, like that could all work in terms of the prep. You could try to peak for then. But I just don't believe, like I say, if you're Carrigan, mate, beggars can't be choosers. You have to try and win the Major and the Grand Slam. You just have to go for it now, you know.
The thing is, like, in the practice room, you should address things like always the same. Like, if I see a problem in a 5v4 on Mirage on T side and we are losing 50% of it, I'm not just gonna like finish the practice. You just want to walk off and whistle and just okay, then nothing happened. And then before the major, I'm just gonna address it like drastically. If I see this happening, we're gonna fix it no matter what the tournament is, right? I do agree with like the fact like okay, for this event we're gonna do a longer boot camp for the major one, right? We're gonna do 3 weeks or 15 days, whatever it is. But for the Dallas one, maybe we don't do the boot camp. Maybe we practice from home and just do the, you know, whatever we usually do. So that can be a difference, right? When it comes to strats, nothing really changed. When it comes to fixing the problems, nothing really changed. The only thing might be the bootcamp thing, but which I think every team should bootcamp before the major, no matter if you are chasing Dallas or not. I mean, it's still the vibe around the major as a competitor. Like I can tell you, it's much different than any other tournament. Like the vibe itself. Right, you don't prepare harder or anything. You just feel like you're preparing harder. That's like, you know, the best explanation. But it's just because the event itself is much prestigious and much grander, and the vibe that it's giving out is much grander. So you feel more jitters, you feel more pressure, you feel like, you know, like you're on a grand slam in tennis, for fuck's sake, right? So it's a little bit different, but overall the preparation should always stay the same. Fixing problems should always stay the same. Hey, who is next?
Okay. Let's see what I want to go with here. Let me see.
How many do you have?
I've got a few I could go for. Oh, here's one. The problem with this one is this one's actually not as good as I think it would have been, because sadly people will now know what I'm about to suggest is starting to happen. But I just think it's a legit one, and you consider that if you actually look at the roster of Astralis, they should be way better than this. And so it's already started now. So my hot take, I've been thinking about this for a while, is I don't think they're going to make either major this year. Because one thing I was thinking of, which is quite unique, is this, right? On paper, just having Glaive, Blame F and Device, that should be enough already. Like if Device is actually already, by the way, hit the ground running, he's pretty decent form. Blame F puts up numbers all the time. And Glaive, in theory, like we obviously give him a bit of a break when he had that situation going with his son and all that jazz. But in theory, he's supposed to still be a great in-game leader who can do some things. I mean, the veto and some of the calls at the moment maybe suggest otherwise. But the reason why I actually think they're not going to make the major is, one, I actually think those pieces, like the roster on paper looks half decent. It doesn't actually look that good in the server if you watch them. There's a reason they lose to a lot of bad teams. And more importantly, I actually think, and this is more of like a meta point, which is why I thought I'd do this as my hot take, because I think you guys will have some interesting angles. I also think if you actually look at the way Astralis plays, what has fucked them is this. Because they've fallen so low, they're not like an invite team, they're not a team that's automatically... Because they have to go through these qualifiers, dude, they actually look like one of the most inappropriate teams to win against no-name qualifier teams. Like, I actually think someone like Glaive, it's like that famous thing of like, if you're like the fucking swordsman, you want to just fight the second best swordsman. You want to fight, if you're Glaive, you want to call a good game. You want someone to do things that make sense, that are predictable. Like, right, this is the way the game is, so I make this decision. If you play the level they're playing in these RMR qualifiers, you are just being thrown in sometimes with a stack against like a team where like 2 players are good, 3 players have never played, say what, like that is chaos CS, Right now, in that team, the joke is you'd rather just have fraggers who just fucking shoot people in the head. The last thing you want is like a real team with tactics. It's going to be really hard to get through those. That's why I think a lot of those teams struggle. So I actually think it's just the level that they're at now is going to fuck them. They're going to have to go through these nightmare open qualifier runs where if you don't know, sometimes you have to play a bunch of like day after day after day, you're just playing another random opponent. Who the fuck's this opponent? And if anyone's not seen those CCT tournaments that them and Evil Genius is losing for fun at the moment, bro, tier 3 right now is fucking mental in CS Online. They just cap all these real pro teams. And it's not that all the pro teams are like fundamentally bad. Like, as I'm saying, I think Astralis would play better in a game against like Complexity on LAN than they would against some of these teams online in a BO1. Like, it's a nightmare trying to make it through. So I think not only do they look like they're going to fail this one, I don't really see, unless they change players, why it'll change. Like, I actually think this is where they might be in that old NIP spot where NIP was a top 10 team, but they would just fail to ever make the major. Like, they would just lose sometimes before the RMR or lose to lesser teams in the RMR. So I think, well, it's called the minor back then, but yeah, I think that there's my hot take. Astralis won't even make a major this year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Astralis is not even a top 20 team right now. Like, not even close. The thing is, like, I agree. I'll tell you why. They are operating right now with minus 33.3% of their team. Like, they have Blame, they have obviously Device, and they have the Glaive as a 3-piece kind of thing, like a core. They don't have a coach that's true, anywhere competent in getting them to the level they need to be. They have Zipnix, who is somewhere in 2018, 19, stuck there, and obviously they have this new kid Buzz, who is not really doing anything. I don't hear any whispers around him, any highlights, any hype.
Bro, there's another one. You know what I said about your name? If your name's going to be Buzz, I better hear fucking buzz about you before you join the top team, motherfucker.
There is no buzz about
you failed your own name. That better be the one. I've got to sign this guy. I've got to get Buzz. No one even heard of Buzz before he was announced. Like, when that got announced, about half of you thought it was a joke, didn't you? Like, what? You mean Astralis talent, right? Like, come on.
Yeah, the thing is the same thing with Chiron, right? Nobody heard about Chiron. He was doing well. The Fame is the next one, in the last measure. But it's again a miss from Astralis side.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have identity anymore. They're lost in their ways. They're in their game. Like, some of the questionable things are happening. Devices obviously just came in. What do we expect from him? He's playing well from the point of circumstances like that he was in last year. He's doing well. Blame is generally doing more than his share of weight, and the thing is, overall they are not even top 20. They have so many reasons. I don't understand. Is it a problem with the contract or what is it when it comes to Sipnix? Why is he still taking the spot there? Why is he still draining that organization and that team out of success and out of money? Nobody knows that. I don't think. Okay, he's a legendary player. Nobody will deny that, right? But the time has passed. That's it, right? The time. It's like bringing back, some of these old supers, like Vince Carter in NBA, to play the star position in the team. Like, doesn't fucking happen. He's not gonna deliver anything. It's the way it is. Just get rid of him, Get rid of Buzz as well. Get a new coach. I don't know what Handan is doing for them, but that's a whole different subject right now. But the thing is, I don't know how much he can do, actually. No matter, if he's competent or not, smart or not, right? The thing is, there is so many issues in that team, in that organization right now, that they're designed to not qualify for anything. Outside of the partnership things, they're forced or obligated to play. Right, that's the thing that is keeping them alive. They're not going to qualify most likely for the major unless somebody goes super nuts like Blame and Device together. And the other events they need to qualify is going to be very hard. They already missed Katowice. They're probably going to miss they're not going to be in Brazil. Probably not in Dallas. Major is questionable. So what's left? The Pro League and Blast, and that's it. For an organization like that and players like that, absolutely unacceptable. They're not going to make the majors. I agree with you.
It's right now, judging Astralis' lineup making the upcoming major, I'd probably give them 40% chances. But I think that it's a pretty hard bet against
nearly a coin toss.
Yeah, pretty much a coin toss. I mean, I kind of give Big similar odds on it. I would give Big 51% chance. I think they're a little bit better from what I've seen lately than what I've seen from Astralis. But I think them not being a top 20 team is a little bit of hyperbole here. Like they beat OG and NIP with the first time Buzz really played with them. Like they're actually, and they're a team that you would expect should get a little bit better. I think that Device is still probably improving, getting used to tier 1 CS again, getting his legs under him. Blame F is still just destroying everybody. Like this closed qualifier, he is just mopping people up completely. Also, Buzz is the 4th highest rated player at this closed qualifier, so he's farming like open quali trash too. So I don't think I'm not gonna say from eye test like Buzz has impressed me or anything like that, but it's just like he is destroying people that are supposed to be worse than him in terms of these teams, and also they like
you want a medal?
The result. Well, the thing is, like, I just think that they're clearly a top 20 team. Like that's where I definitely I wouldn't bet on them making the major with 1-to-1 odds. I definitely would not do that, but I definitely can see a world where they do it, and that's
you think they can improve for the second major.
Wait. Like you said they're top 20 team, but you wouldn't put them at the major?
Yeah, because the major doesn't always invite the best 20 teams.
Okay.
Because of the NA quality
they're
and the
not the
Asian
best 20
quality.
team then. But the thing is, like, I can name other 19
you're
teams.
using the major qualification to say who the top 20 teams are in the world.
I can name 19 teams that are better than Astralis.
They're literally the betting odd favorites versus their opening match on Spirit at Pro League. Which
I know who am I betting on that one.
That one, yeah. I mean, that is a surprising.
That is a good line. I can't lie. It's a pretty good line.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good line.
I'm surprised that Astralis are the favorites in that matchup. To be completely honest, but like usually there's some truth behind those a little bit, right? Okay. So I just think like their position right now in the world ranking is tough because like if they were in the Asia or North America quality, I think they're making the major for sure.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, as things, that's why I think, and I do think they're a top 20 team. But yeah, I mean, I could get behind the fact that I don't think they'll make the next major. That's where, but I don't know the second major. Like Blame F and Device are just so good. Like if I have any faith on any player making a return, Device has already shown a good amount, and I expect he's going to show a lot more too. So those two players alone, like, I mean, Big's done it with less.
Put it this way, I'm not saying that I want Astralis to implement military discipline on their team. I just want them to get a buzz cut. So, whatever. It's a freebie for you there. It's a freebie.
Yeah, that's good.
Whatever. Do you have a take? Do you want Maui?
Okay.
No, I was kind of all in on the Grand Slam.
I can do one more if people want. Go on then.
Have
you got a spicy one, Kassad? Come on.
No, it's not a spicy one, but it's more like a current event kind of thing. Nexa is the most underrated player right now.
Player or IGL?
Player.
Ooh,
Player.
Okay.
Right now. He is... personally, I think he's a fucking rock when it comes to, like, you know, his positions, especially on the CT side. I think he can contribute a lot to many international teams. The best teams even, you know, teams like Liquid, teams like... you know, organizations like Maus, you know, teams like that.
What sort of player would you replace him for? If you take one of these teams you listed, who would you put? What sort of spot would you put him in?
I would put him in an anchor spot on the CT side mostly, and I would put him like I would not put him as an IGL, that's for sure. I would definitely. I can see him being in Vitality instead of Spinks. That's one thing.
Ooh, okay, that's bold.
Absolutely.
That's bold.
Yeah, you don't understand how actually good he is when he's in a right state of mind. When the actual atmosphere, the things around him are like, normal, healthy, and like without tension, and he can be in his own little bubble. He's the type of the player. He's not like old school players, an old school like vibe of the things like, let's say me, Yanko, Nico, we have it like, we understand each other when it comes to sense of humor and all this like mentality, culture things. He's a new generation type of kid. He is more like internet, jokes and all these memes and stuff that we are not into. Like, you ask Nico, he doesn't know a single meme. I don't know a fucking single meme. Yanko as well, barely something that he read. We don't give a fuck about that, but it's not our thing. But he's like that, and he needs environment like that. And he can deliver. He doesn't need to be the IGL, he doesn't need to be there. I don't think he wants to be there anymore. That's my personal opinion, but he's right now super underrated. Whoever gets him, if he actually goes from OG into another team, Because I asked him, like I talked to him after this announcement went in. I obviously can't say why and what's happening, but for now he's not going anywhere. It's not like people are, sending him to another team or anything. He is stepping down for the reasons that they mentioned, And the thing is, like, if he decides to go to another team, if he decides to change the environment and change the role to be the anchor, to be the player and just a part of the team in different ways, I think he can be in a top tier team, 100%. He can definitely 1,000,000% take Spinks' spot in that team.
Oh man, Spinks is a. I thought you were gonna pick someone like Nitro, and I was gonna be like, okay, well, I'll give that to you. But when it goes to Spinks, I was like, I don't know.
Because here's the problem: you've put him in the uncomfortable position, kassad, where to disagree, he has to defend Spinks. So.
I know. I like. It was like
it's a good checkmate. Well done. Okay.
I could have said this 3 months ago because I was all my Spinks hatred was really paying off there. But like now, Spinks look pretty good at Kato, so now I can't even really knock him that hard. I mean. I'll give it to you that
terrible, man. Like Vitality was terrible.
Okay, yeah. I almost would be like give him Dupree spots though. Like Dupree looked worse to me.
He's not aggressive. That's the point. Dupree is an entry on T side. Nexa can't do that shit. Like he's very uncomfortable with that. But you said Vitality. I will let you go on with your point. But Vitality had a terrible T side. Like god awful T side. Like they looked ridiculous. Like CT side was solid, but the T side was crazy bad.
Well, so I mean, I'll go just with Nitro because I can actually defend that Nexa could be in there for Nitro because I think skill wise better. I think that Nitro as a caller that on that like EPL shoulder content, everybody said, playing against Nitro is the comfiest thing ever. And you do watch Liquid play, and it's like there's nothing really too crazy about them. Except when Yakindar starts calling versus Cloud9 or like Outsiders or whoever, or versus Navi. But then it's like, obviously he's calling. So Nexa doesn't even really have to be a full-time dedicated primary IGL for that team. He could just take Nitro spots, produce like show more skill in those spots, and then just call some of the time. Like he's clearly capable of calling, and I don't think that he's going to be too much of a he's definitely not a downgrade from Nitro in my eyes.
I'll tell you why not, why I disagree. And this is like, Elige. First of all, they have a lot of strong personalities in Liquid. We can agree to that. We have Elige, we have obviously Naf, who is also he's introvert, but he is very, he can be stubborn, very stubborn. We have obviously Yakindar, who is opinionated, like strongly, sometimes more than he should have, but nevertheless, that's who he is, whatever, right? Putting Nexa in there to actually make the calls, or half of the calls, or 40% of the calls, would go terribly. Simply because Elige likes to play things that are super structured. He likes to have way-outs for like different situations. And Nexa is the IGL who likes to play loose, default instinct-based Counter-Strike. So if he tries to call like that with Elige in the team, it's a problem. If Elige or Yakindar tries to overcall Nexa, that's a problem. So it's like problem both ways. So that's why it wouldn't theoretically, like I get what you're saying, fragging wise, firepower, like the experience all makes sense. But if you look at the personalities and all the things that are like going together with that, it's a bad match. It's just a mismatch. It wouldn't work. But I would put him in like I said, in Vitality. You can go like if he wants to downgrade a little bit, he can go to Maus. There are options, right? There are definitely options. Even I hate saying this, but even an IP can be a thing.
Here's the problem. I can't go as far as the Spinks take. Like, that's too far for me. Because here's the thing. Like, I do think eye test-wise, Nexa isn't as good as Spinks. Like, at least what is possible with the two players. And, like, if you watch POVs and what they can do in their roles and all their spots. The joke is, I actually do think, by the way, a team like Ents should consider him. I think he could be like the fire. Yes. That would be good firepower. I'm with you. I actually think the main problem he's had the whole time, that's what I always said in G2, is just don't be the IGL bro. It's clearly also, let's be real, if you listen to all the interviews with him, he's a guy who always sort of hints, like, yeah, maybe I'm not the best IGL, or, I just have to, he's one of those guys where it's like they're sort of letting you know, like Hampus did for 2 years, like, I'm blinking twice because I'm being held hostage and I have to be the IGL. Like, he knows he shouldn't be. It's just that was just his role in the team, and you're not going to say, like, yeah, take me off this spot, and then kick me out of G2 as well. Like, it's just the way he was going to stay in G2, so I get why he did it. But I agree. As a raw fragger, I actually think if you take all the IGL duties away, he probably is underrated. He's a better fragger than people think. He's actually even got a pretty well all-round game as well. He can win clutches, he can just frag with AK. He can AWP if he has to, if he had to as a secondary AWPer. True, he's probably not well used as an entry pack player, probably perform more like a lurker / an anchor that would make more sense to me. But that's the thing, yeah. I think it's just that there's teams out there wouldn't even be thinking of him. That's why actually I think you framed it well. Like, I don't think an Ents is thinking of him. The joke is it's easier to see like config fitting in all these teams because your brain just goes, he's a star player. But I think unfortunately Nex has ruined his game by people just think he's an IGL. So they think, well, we don't need an IGL, we've got Snappy. Whereas it's like, bro, for his own good, he shouldn't be an IGL. The only thing is though, this is what I will say, is it's when you said that killer phrase where you said that like he's a really good player in all these ways, like when he's something like when he's feeling his game or when like things are right, you know, for the game. That's the problem. That there's words there that are doing what we call a lot of heavy lifting, kassad, which is what happens when that doesn't happen though. Because here's the problem. I actually think this is why JKS got underrated. Because if you get to know JKS's teams that he's been in and the ones that worked and the ones that didn't, and you talk and you know JKS, not just on public behind the scene, half his problem is just like he doesn't know it, but he created half his problem. Like basically JKS was the guy who gave up spots that should have been his, or said, yeah, I'll do a job that really you shouldn't say you should do, and let himself be put in uncomfortable situations and lineups, and as a result it didn't work because he's another person who, if things are comfortable, he can play his game, he looks great, but if he's not, it's not as great. So all I'll say is I agree, but that also means like you do have to fully commit. Like, I'm committed to this guy because I'm going to build the team around how it's going to work for you. Because when you say that, like, oh, in his game, here's the thing, mate. Simple can be an utter prick. Nico could be causing all problems. They're still going to frag out in the game. They don't need that shit. Like, it has to be the way. Like, so I know what you mean, but like, here's the thing. That's why to me, someone like an Ents wouldn't it? Or Maus. There's another great shout, by the way. He has the experience. Put him instead of like one of those fucking middle of the pack players there. He'll fucking clean up probably. But I also think as well, that's why I wouldn't make him agile at all. Like, I wouldn't even do the secondary calling thing because I also got the sense he is someone where I think he could be dominated by the bigger personalities. So I actually think you'd be fucking yourself. There's another thing. That's why if you're nexa, don't be the IGL. Because the worst thing you can ever do, you know this is a coach, kassad, is you have the responsibility of the one who made the call, but you don't make the call. You let the other guy make the call, and then it doesn't work, and then you get fired. It's your fault. Like, that's the worst. That's the worst spot you can ever put yourself in if you have some level of responsibility. Like, it's actually better to know, like, oh, I'm going to let this guy have room. So actually, fuck, if you want to call me, you do it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. The thing is, like, when I said, like, he needs to be in his own space, like, I'm not thinking, like, he's sitting on a fucking shrine, having a fucking butler, like, bringing him, like, things that can just, you know...
A throne, yeah.
Not like that. But it's, like, you know, just make him comfortable as possible. As a coach, like, take any sports coaches, like managers, he's going to bring, like, a player that's, you know, young one, and he doesn't know if to put him, like, as a center back or a right back or maybe a left wing or right wing or something. Like, you know, you test it out, you see what you can do with him. That's going to be the best for your team and for him. Obviously, you find compromise somewhere in between, and he's not like 16 years old kid. He understands what compromise means. Like, as long as you don't put him in a completely fucked situation, you know, and I'm looking at EG right now that put their fucking team in the shit situation. As long as you don't do that, you should be fine. Right?
I got one landing spot that'd be so good for him and probably for the team too. Is just put him on Fnatic for Fasher. Like, they play actually a lot of similar spots.
Okay.
Like, they're both like B short CT side overpass players. On Nuke, it's like Nexa's kind of like, he's kind of like the mini garage guy, like kind of outside rifler, but Fasher's kind of like he's kind of more like the door rifler. It's not that different. It's like pretty similar spot. Other spots, like I think Mirage, Nexa's, okay, that's where it's a little different. I think Fasher's kind of like a lurker, but like if you're putting Nexa in the a lurker spot, he's going to be as good, if not better than Fasher. Just saying. I think I think role wise, it works for probably most things, and this is a person where I'd say Nexa is better. He's gonna help mid rounding a lot better than probably Fasher is. He just got way more experience in that regard. So I mean, that would be an ideal landing spot where I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna pay attention to Fnatic for a little bit more again, because as of right now, I'm kind of out on Fnatic. Like, I don't know if they're gonna get much better.
It's a valid point. Like, he can take his spot definitely. I don't think Fasher is like long for this team, you know. I don't think he's an expiration date on that one, but he's not the only one there. We spoke about his Roy, who's like 29, 28, whatever, like underwhelming hope as well, like very average. Like, I don't know, like it would be a good step for Fnatic. I don't think it would be a good step for Nexa. I think like getting into Ents would be more valuable because you have Diha there and younger players and like.
So whose role do you want him for Valde spots?
Yes, Valde
I think it
spots.
should be
Send Madden to Ents. to entry. Sorry, send Madden to entry.
Yeah.
And then, place next on that
Yeah.
spots, and it should be fine. DK is behind you, and it'll go.
I've got one last take. I've got one last
right.
hot take we can do. And I actually think it's a pretty good hot take because, like all hot takes, it has one area it's a little bit wobbly that you have to get over, like the rickety part on an Indiana Jones rope bridge till you get to the part where you can jump over before it always falls out right the second you jump over. So obviously, I will add in the context that this is going to be a take about outsiders. So already, Chiron has only played one tournament, and who knows? For all we know, maybe he's a bust after this. He's never good. But what I have seen looks good, and I sort of get now why so many people would try to court this guy and get him in their team. So here's the take. Because if you think of outsiders historically, it used to be a team where one of the main cracks against them was it was like heroic. It's like, right, well, they've got like the style that's really good, but they don't have like the superstar player. They definitely don't have enough firepower. Like back in the day, like you had Germany Kindar, and then it was like maybe Busters in the mix. Then even on the last lineup, it's like, right, Fame's going off, Flit's going off. It's only really at the major that Jim was going ham. You know what? Not, usually it's like you got the two players and then one's what. If you actually look with this Chiron, right, assuming Chiron could do a similar sort of level that he's at now, which doesn't look implausible. He didn't go crazy. He just did like a pretty good first outing. If you consider they have Jim, who was the MVP of the major, Fame just consistently frags, and Flit is actually probably the most underrated CIS player. He's just a really strong player. I actually think if you look right now in CSGO, this lineup is like top 2 or 3 in terms of firepower in the entire world. Because think about it, I tried to think about it, right? Number 1 you'd give to G2, obviously. But dude, even number 2 becomes mad sketch. Like number 2 is like, what? FaZe, maybe?
FaZe.
You know? And
FaZe
after that, you just go, and as soon as you get FaZe, by the way, it's clear they're number 3 at least, because then you go into like you can't really do Na'Vi because Na'Vi hasn't been Na'Vi for that long. You know what I mean? You look at the other teams like Liquids, like I say, the 2 people have a good tournament, 2 people don't. Like, dude, the joke is like, this is why actually I think this will be the test for is GM like going to be a transcendently all-time great IGL, because bro, you've actually got the firepower now. This is actually a pretty crazy lineup. Assuming this Chiron guy just does this same level, he doesn't have to be the best player. I think they've just got actually a lot of firepower in the fucking lineup. It's wild.
Yeah, I do agree. The thing is, like, Chiron, I watched him on Kato. Maui, you were there too. Yeah, you saw that how sharp he is. Like, he's unbelievably good. Like, he is fire, right? When it comes to shooting people. The temporary problem they have right now is the fact that he's like a rookie, right?
Yes.
He hasn't played many events at all. Just the one that he played with the team, and that's it. Can outsiders in a couple of months, if he stays on this level, be toe-to-toe with every other team when it comes to firepower, like FaZe and G2? Yes, absolutely. You have Fame, we saw it on the major. You have James, who is good. Obviously, Flit, and now Chiron. These people can shoot. They're very sharp. Chiron has a problem with utility. I did a telestrator thing on the major on Katowice about his utility and like how he overuses it or never uses it, or like he finishes the round with like 15 seconds left and he still has a smoke and he's getting caught by like a couple of flashes, and like those like rookie mistakes, right? Those things, like in 6 months, 3 months, if Dustin is doing a good job at his team, like they can be ironed out really easily, right? If he fixes that and the level of the sharpness stays the same, I don't see any problem for outsiders outside of them beating themselves with a stupid playstyle, right? Which is kind of double-edged sword that can just kill you or just get you the major, right? As we saw.
One thing that's weird about this team is like they probably would have had more people in the top 20, mainly Flit, if they just played more events. Like that's why I think right now outsiders are probably also one of the more underrated teams in terms of skill, because if you actually, like, when I was trying to come up with my own top 20 and like placing people in the list, like Flit was on mine because I think like HLTV didn't include him because he didn't meet like this criteria of like a minimum 100 maps played versus top 20 opponents or something like that, because he played 97. He played 97 versus top tier opponents, and the difference is actually like a couple like it's basically outsiders get excluded because of that single filter,
yes,
essentially.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, James did hit 20th, but it's like, in terms of like when I watch them play, like Flit is such a beast. Like he's also like frequently after Yukindar left, like he's doing a lot of like the opening fights for them, opening brawls. Like I think your point about this team having one of the most firepower, like they're easily top 4. Like I don't think there's even much debate for me if they're top 4. It's just like, who are you really putting there between 2, 3, and 4? And so Yeah, I mean, if this team really makes it work, again, like, just credit to Jame because you're taking three like guys that want to fight early in rounds, Fame, Flit, and Chiron, and making them actually play in a system that's probably one of the hardest systems to play in all of CS, along with like Heroic or something like that.
Yeah, it's a G2 phase, heroic, and then outsiders, right? Or however you want to place them. But that is the top four when it comes to firepower. I think there is no question at all, like you said, any doubt like who is supposed to be there. That's just the teams with like the most talented raw individuals in the team. Some teams have more experienced players, some less, but that's fine. That's gonna change. That's gonna go up and down. And I also want to see if Chiron can actually maintain the level of his game, after this first event. All signs point to yes, but there is much left to see.